It's been a little bit odd, I think. We've already had a number of existing engineers who work across the UK. We've even got some people who work in Europe, and we have remote sales staff. So as a business, we've already been geared up to remote working. We have infrastructure in the cloud. So none of that was really foreign or alien to us. That was already quite normal. So sort of technically, moving to working from home was not really a big thing. What of course did hit us really hard was the culture change. So suddenly we had a bunch of people who weren't meeting up in offices day to day, and we had to find other ways to communicate. And the other thing that hit us quite hard was the sudden change of demands for customers. So we moved from a world where day to day people wanted support with the infrastructure in their offices. Suddenly all these people weren't there anymore. They were working from home. And so our motivation changed. We had to work out how we could support people home working, a sort of disparate number of people rather than all being in the same place. The other major impact that we had was that we had a very healthy project list. We were visiting sites, doing installations and migrations, and almost overnight that changed because, of course, we couldn't visit sites anymore. So suddenly our project list went from a lot to very little. We've taken advantage of the furlough scheme to furlough our project engineers because there's very little work to do. So they have the luxury of being able to not work on full salary for a couple of months. But what we decided to do is keep on a healthy support team so we can keep looking after customers in this new world. And also we've decided to keep on our full development staff so that we can work on product innovation and we can look at creating solutions to help customers work from home.
I think the business has been turned on its head within days. I think we had a couple of weeks to kind of think about it in effect before Boris got on the telly on Monday the 23rd. But since then, the business has just been completely turned on its head. Virtually every business routine has changed. We've gone from a community-based business, both at site and at places like our regional and head office sites, to a remote business virtually overnight. I mean, I don't know, we've got about 220 employees, of which probably 50 have got laptops, and some of the guys in finance who process all our purchase orders and do all the usual head office type stuff. We've had suddenly, literally in 2 days, had to move them all home. So it's been quite a fascinating process of getting everyone working remotely and then working with our customers remotely. So it's completely turned what we've done on its head. I think we've gone into we're a very customer centric business anyway, as I think the whole industry is. But I think we've gone even more into customer support and preservation mode, and we've also gone into cash preservation mode. And I think we've become very just for the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've become very head down on preserving our customers so that we come out of this with a similar rent roll with successful customers that we can then restart, if you like, but also as I say, the cash preservation mode so that we can come out of it at the far end as well. I think it's quite interesting that we've talked to, I think, 25% of our customers now. We've got about 4,000 customers across the UK, and it's been really interesting that we've got even closer to those customers over that period. So, and we've got really into that process even more so. So again, we'll come on to that later, but it has turned us on our head in the short term.
It's been a big shock to everyone, no doubt, but I think the teams in general are coping pretty well. So all of our meetings, of course, now are either online or they're conference calls or they're done over Microsoft Teams. We have an online chat software. We use Slack, which is our support team sort of bread and butter. So they're able to collaborate day to day and interact with each other as if they were sitting next to each other in the office. And we've had some monthly meetings. We have a monthly town hall meeting where everyone in the business gets together, and it used to be in our meeting room in our main office, but we did that over Zoom a couple of weeks ago. And that worked really well. So it was great to sort of see everyone's face collaborating together. We have regular hangouts. So every Friday we have more of a kind of social collaboration event where anyone can dial in, and we just do some social stuff, some quizzes, just everyone just has a bit of contact time together. I think it's been really positive, and we felt that that's kind of eased the mental pressure of everyone working in isolation. And I think my personal viewpoint on the whole situation has changed, because I always used to really shun video conferencing and online meetings. I felt it didn't really add any value, but actually I've personally completely changed my tune on this. I've really embraced it now, and I almost find if somebody phones me up, I find it weird that they're not doing a video chat. I find that it's sort of become the new norm for me. So it's very much changed perspective on collaborating and working together. But overall, I think everyone is coping really well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been really pleasantly surprised as well how people have coped and come together as a team. I think, I mean, you could probably see in the background, it's quite sunny outside, and I think that does help. I think if we'd have been in the depths of the winter, you might have seen a slightly different reaction to it. But so I think that's helped massively. But yeah, we're doing similar things. It's, as I say, we've got 220 odd people right across the UK. So one of the biggest challenges that we've always got is where we've got a manager at a site remote, is how we engage them to feel part of a team. So we've always had to think about that, but we've had to think about that even more and more recently. So yeah, we're the same. So each region's got its own WhatsApp group. We do team Zoom calls every week, every month, at all levels. That is, we've got internal chat channels like Yammer that we use. Lots of cross team communication going on, such that if we hear about someone not coping or being a bit vulnerable, we all kind of rally around that person, and there's lots of ways of doing that. We've trained, as well as I would recommend this to everyone. We've actually trained about 8 mental health first aiders across the UK. So again, there's always a confidential line into people, and that's been really well received. And as part of our kind of benefits package, if you like, to our staff, we've got a mental health line, or mental health helpline, which has been really good as well. So the whole team feels as though it can reach out, and there is always that open forum. Again, we're the same as Adam. We're doing all sorts of competitions. So we recently had spring photos competition, working from home photos competition, and I think the guys do bingo every week in the regions and stuff like that. And I think on Friday, we've got a company-wide quiz, which is going to be quite interesting with 220 people on it. But the guys assure me that it's going to work, so that could be quite interesting. I think it's I don't know. Our project manager Anne is fantastic, because she's a trained yoga teacher, so she's doing mindfulness classes on Zoom and all this kind of stuff. So I think that the team has really pulled together really well, and it's been fascinating. Same as you, Adam. I think I'm a bit of I can be a bit of a dinosaur, I guess, old bugger. But I think actually this whole situation that we've got through, I think will completely change people's ways of working. I think it's been absolutely fantastic, and the technology can only get better as well. So things like Zoom, where it's quite difficult to talk at the same time, that will all be sorted out over over the coming weeks, months, years. And I think it will become even better. I think it'd be a really fantastic move for business and people's well-being.
a massive change in the world, it does give you pause for thought, and it does give you time to reflect. And we have seen a downturn in work, so we have got a little bit more capacity to actually sort of take a step back and think about what we can do. One of the main things we've been thinking about is how the situation will affect the future, and in particular how we change product development and our product development strategy, firstly to sort of adapt to the immediate situation. What do customers need now that they didn't need 4 weeks ago, and what we can best do to help them in the current situation, but also how we change our long-term vision. So although it's impossible to completely know, we can make some fairly sensible predictions about what the post-COVID world will look like. So how do we change our development strategy to meet what the future needs will be of our customers? And I think we spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I think we'll touch on some of those points as we go on. And the other thing that we spent a lot of time doing is we've just been reviewing our internal systems and processes. So whilst we have had some quiet time, we've been thinking about how we can get things better in place internally, so that when we are ready to go back to the world again, we can just be a bit more efficient about the way that we do business, the way that we interact with customers, the way that work changes hands internally. So I think we've done a fair bit of both of those things.
Till now, I think it's been, full all hands to the pump, as it were. We've had very little time to think about anything else other than customer preservation, cash preservation. And I think it's only as we get into a rhythm with the lockdown. But again, we've got a milestone coming up, is we're doing all our May billing. So, we did quite well in terms of our April collections, but I think May may be a bit more challenging, and I think June will be even more challenging if the lockdown remains. So I'll just kind of put that caveat in terms of thinking time. And as for clearing cupboards, you can probably see in the background, I've not had any chance to clear cupboards yet. I've got a window just there that I could throw everything out into a skip, but I couldn't get a skip delivered. But anyway, so it's kind of been a bit of a luxury. But I think what we are setting our minds to now is that there has been a pretty profound disruption of business to business, if you like, that we've had to swiftly react to in order to survive, if you like. And I'm kind of starting to think about, it sounds really crass, but the COVID-19 habits. And I think it's really, as I say, turned our business on its head, and had to make us think about a number of things, and made us change and innovate very, very quickly. So, and what I don't want to do is go back to the old, if you like, the old ways of working. And so I'm trying to kind of classify these under the COVID-19 habits, if you like. So there's a whole host of things that we're thinking about how we change and innovate for the future. So, top of that is cash preservation, but things like cost efficiency. We've had to cut costs like never before, and actually it would be quite easy to sink back into being a bit slack in terms of cost. So, things like customer relationships, we always felt that we were really good at customer relationships, but actually we're even closer to our customers now than we have ever been. Just helping them fill in forms for making grants, and helping them understand what help and support they can get from government and from local authorities, etc. So there's all those kind of things that we're looking at to make sure that we get the best of what this situation has brought about. But then I think also looking to the future, and what opportunities there will be in the future. And I think for this industry, there will be massive amounts of opportunity moving forward, in terms of just not just from things like the social distancing will be the longer term norm potentially, but from our perspective, we're a regional business. There will be, I think, much more of a regional push, which will enable our business to take lots of opportunities. I think there will be all sorts of change in terms of security of supply chain, so onshoring. There'll be new types of business, new industry. So there's going to be huge amounts of opportunity, and that's what we're now starting to turn our mind to, is how we how we kind of take advantage of those. But we're in the very early days of those. What I'd say is that, we're still in, we have to support our customers. We have to get our customers through this to the end, and we also have to get ourselves through this. So, but I think it will. I think the whole industry will come through strong with lots of opportunity. So those are the kind of things we're thinking about.
One of the things I had to do when we were looking at working from home was to get some more licenses for a remote access software tool that we use. I was really disappointed when I looked at the cost to find that it had been inflated by the provider almost exponentially. And I just thought that was a really disgusting thing to do. It's not a time to be opportunistic and profiteering. I didn't pay, and I think if I had paid, it would have massively soured the relationship with that provider. So that kind of kicked off our thinking about what can we actually do for our customers that is going to help them in this time, because long term we want to solidify this relationship. We don't want to sour it by just trying to make some quick money. So what we did was we got our development team focusing on what we called at-home solutions. So wherever possible across our solutions, we tried to add features that would enable end users, so customers of flexible workspace, to take their solutions home, to work remotely, but to continue to engage with them. One of the main ways was in phone provision. So of course, if you use phones in your offices, if we can give you the ability to continue using that functionality at home, that's really going to help everyone. So there's an obvious benefit, which is if you're the customer, you can then carry on working as if you were at home. But there's a more subtle benefit, which is continuing this relationship with a customer. So if you are a flexible space and the customer is continuing to use your services from home, first of all, you've got a revenue stream that keeps going. So for example, call minutes, it's a fairly minor thing in the scheme of things, but they're still your customer and they're still using your services, which preserves this relationship. But I think more subtly, because you're still seen as a provider to them, that's going to be really useful for the future, because some of these customers, I think, will take a downturn. They may pull back from their office space, but if the recovery is as predicted, they will be looking for office space again in the future. So if you can keep them as a customer in any way, and you can keep a relationship and a dialogue going with them, they will consider you and they will come back to you. And I think anything you can do to carry on touching these customers right now is going to make a massive difference for the future. So we released our at-home solutions, and I think that's had a great help to just keep people working. We were pleased that we were able to make those free for customers, or where we had supplier costs, to pass those on at cost, so that there was no extra costs involved wherever possible. The other things that we tried to do to help customers was over April and March, for all of our managed service estate, we waived all fees for cancellations and for setups of package changes, so that if customers did want to draw back a bit and then come back later, we made sure that there wasn't an excessive profit coming from that. So I think helping customers to carry on with their solutions, carry on with relationships, and give them something a bit innovative so that they can work from home is much more important at this time.
Lots of requests. As I said earlier, we've spoken to about 25% of our customers. So, and most of that was in effect reactive. So as soon as the kind of situation arose, and then we issued bills for April, we got a deluge of phone calls, if you like, and it took us a few weeks to get through those. And actually, most people are grateful that we're actually talking to them. And so actually, we've majored on probably on deferrals. So we've got a deferral scheme in place at various levels. So what we try and do is talk to our customers and try and understand their predicaments, and try and help them through. And we're also, we try and major on what support they can get from government, first of all. So we spend a lot of time trying to help them, as I said earlier, fill in forms, trying to get them to the best place in order to be able to set out those forms. And there are some really good websites that the government has issued, and we've got direct links from our website into them to try and help them through that process. And what we found in the first month or so is that the customers are more concerned about preservation of their business. They do throw in the rent holiday or the discount, whatever you want to call it, question. But again, we've been trying to get them to focus on what support they can get from the furloughing, from the rates, from the grants, and they're starting to come through now. We're trying, if you like, not to go down at the rent holiday route at this point in the process. I'll be really candid. Maybe sometimes people say I'm too candid, but March, we've just, from a very basic perspective, we just got our P&L for March so we can understand our costs. In April, obviously we'll have much better cost savings. So I think moving through the next couple of months, we'll and depending on how long the process or how long we are locked down for, I think, yes, we'll probably get more and more questions on the rent freeze going forward. But at the moment, I think most of our businesses, which are small businesses, so they will be quite different from, say, some of the city centre serviced office providers. So forgive me, and we are very regional as well, is that, they are really, passionate about, their businesses functioning, and they're desperate to keep them going. And actually the rent-free piece is not something that we've seen a huge amount of yet. But I think if this lockdown carries on longer, I think we will see that. So we're trying to, if you like, have a sliding scale of support, such that we don't give it all yet, and then we can get ourselves through this process, and then we can hopefully then support the customers more with but principally it's lots of different routes to support, not just acceding to a rent free. I understand it's very different for, say, London city centre, where London's essentially shut down and the centres are shut down, so you can't provide the service. All of our centres are open, and therefore we can provide the service. So it is slightly different. So I apologise if I can't answer that question directly for those that are slightly different. But we are trying to push towards that, support and deferral, and then potentially in the future looking at costs and, say, passing those on. Interestingly, I think about 20% of our customer base is still working. So you'll regret getting me on, Jane, because I just ramble for hours. But about 10% of our businesses are essential businesses, so medical supply, logistics, all those kind of businesses, and then about 10% are probably manufacturing workshops. So we've got 10% of those types of businesses in as well. So, and people are desperately trying to keep their businesses going. And I think what we have seen over the last week or so is there's a bit of a filter back, and we're starting to see more people come back. But overall, things I think are reasonable with our customers, and they're all doing okay. There's an awful lot who've just stopped. But I think if lockdown starts to be eased, say end of May, I think the majority should be okay. That's what we're seeing.
But yeah, so how the lockdown has changed our priorities? Well, we've really tried to focus on what the post-COVID world might look like, and I think that our thinking's been twofold. So, firstly, I've touched on this quite a lot, but existing users, what will their need be? And that's where I've already talked about customer retention. So the customers might be out of their office temporarily, but what can we do to keep a conversation going with them, keep a relationship going, give them tools to keep working technically, and make sure that their serviced office, their provider, is at the forefront of their mind when they do want to come back to an office. Give our customers every option to retain their customers as best as possible. So then we've also been thinking about, well, where are new customers going to come from? And I'm sure Gareth will have more words to say on this, but I think our feeling is that larger companies will put an awful lot of thought to downsizing, to look for more flexible options, and to maybe look from big office lets to more spread out options. So where they can have multiple options which are more flexible, which are smaller, and which they can connect together. So we were thinking about how our solutions fit in with that world. And actually, we were really quite pleased to find that our existing solutions cater quite well for this. We already have tools built into our network management platform that allows customers to link offices together. We can manage bandwidth, so we can cope with giving out internet in a high quality way for bigger customers. We can allow customers to bring their own equipment so that they can make VPN connections to link offices in different buildings together. So we were really pleased that our solutions already sort of tick those boxes. But the other thing I think we're really thinking about very much is, again, Gareth talked about it, this adoption of video conferencing solutions into the new world and how everyone is finding that this is a very useful tool. I think that if we can help existing customers and help buildings to promote these kind of solutions, it will help them pick up customers in the future. So one of the key things is making Wi-Fi really, really excellent and friction-free. You can come into the centre either as a customer or a guest, sign up to the Wi-Fi and have an amazing experience. That's really important. I think the second thing is to make sure that all of our customers have the option to provide great hardware in their meeting rooms. So I think I would say, hopefully everyone agrees, it's the norm to have some kind of TV equipment in a meeting room, but actually having more tailored video conferencing solutions is probably something that everyone should think about. So being able to give you speakers, cameras, all of the functionality that people need to come into a meeting room, to have an online meeting, but to remain platform agnostic, so that if you're on Teams or Zoom or your own solution, all of those will work brilliantly. And I think if centres can promote these kind of solutions, you will attract new customers. So that's what we're working on delivering.
The long-term impact of coronavirus on the sector can only be a positive one. I think I was around in the global financial crisis. It's been a hell of a 10 years, but we had the global financial crisis in 8, 9, and then we had Brexit in 16, and it's just the last 10 years has been quite a roller coaster. But I think all of that has really driven the growth in flexible space, and I think it will continue even more, even at a faster pace, if you like, because of coronavirus. There inevitably will have to be, but there will be some challenges on business models. So the 6 feet office is clearly going to challenge. I don't know what people call it. It's densification, is it? But there's going to be an about turn and de-densification. So the implications of that are, costs are going to have to come down in order to preserve profit, or rents are going to have to go up. So there's going to have to be some give in terms of that business model, and we've got to try and address all of that. But then there's the physical impact of the I don't know. There's a few videos out there from, I don't know, one from Cushman or JLL, I think it was, showing circles around desks that you weren't allowed to walk into. So clearly there's a space issue that we have to deal with, and we will deal with that. But I think overall, I think the opportunity is huge. So for us as a regional operator, I think I mentioned earlier about supply chain security. I think there's going to be a big push towards localism and buying British, if you like. And it sounds a bit jingoistic, but I think the issues that we've had with PPE means that people will really take note of actually, should we be producing our own or manufacturing more of our own stuff, producing more food, etc., etc. So there's going to be a real kind of push for that localism, if you like. There's all sorts of opportunities. These kind of crises always generate more entrepreneurs. I mean, we can't shy away from it. There's going to be an awful lot of businesses that go to the wall. But most of the good businesses will survive, and actually more businesses will be created. You've got, I don't know, you'll have an awful lot of probably pushback of corporate employees, who actually think, I don't really want to work for a corporate anymore. You've got, older gits like me, kind of a bit maybe wary or tired of commuting, thinking, do you know what, actually, I might think about how I work more locally. Lots of redundancies always create new businesses. And as I mentioned earlier, new industries like medical supplies, or I don't know, it's probably already out there, but things like, the new buzzword of med tech, or whatever it is. So I think there will be lots of opportunities. And Adam talked about, the downsizing of bigger corporates. So, there was a flow from the bigger corporates into a balance of property space, and I think that will happen more. And for us in the regions, I think we'll see more bigger lettings, if you like. So we may have to transform some of our sites to have bigger space to facilitate those more regional operation centres, if you like, of the bigger corporates. So I can only see that it will be good. There will be some pain in the short term, and there will be some thought needed to be put around the business model and how we actually make money out of an office that is had to be de-densified, if you like, in a city centre. But we'll address that and we'll get over it. But actually, there will be such demand for that kind of space that I think we have to deal with that. I think also working from home is great, and being with your family is great, but actually I do miss the buggers in the office, and so actually I do want to get out occasionally. So there's going to be just more of a balance, and I think it's going to be fascinating. But I think lots of opportunities, I see them.